Good morning and welcome back to Morning Express. We are on the way it is. In the last few moments, we've been talking about Gishangi's resignation. And gentlemen, I want us to also look at the Interior CS Mutua Ringo being moved to the Defense Ministry, and there were other movements before. You had a contribution to make, so you can do that. Tell us also about what you think on that. But on Gishangi, before we move away from that, for you, what you felt was that straw that broke the camel's back, if you like, for him? Well, for me, I'd like to entirely disagree with Lawyer Weda here, that the president needs to have blanket powers. Because when you talk about Wanjiko really does not mean Wanjiko per se, the poor lady selling vegetables at Gikomba market. Wanjiko refers to the state. And by the time you rise in through the ranks, become the director of the National Intelligence Service, you are supposed to be loyal to the state. And if the king is naked, he must be told that he is naked. There's a very high probability that in the third world country, the president may want to surround himself with people who will tell him what he wants to hear. And as a result, the nation gets into trouble. I think the president needs to be given information as it is. And in accounting, there's a big concept that you are given information for control and decision making, whether or not the information is palatable. You don't want a situation whereby, if say you've got a rogue presidency and they want some sorts of information, and that's what they keep on getting every single day, and as a result the country gets into trouble. And Weda refers to America as a good example. They've got so many agencies around intelligence networking, and they give the president information as it is. So there is no reason as to why a president should say take office and immediately want to fire an entire team. Of course, if somebody thinks that I'm unable to serve with the new president, then they should offer resignation. And if the current heads who are serving are not maybe meeting the president's expectation, then as Omar has indicated, the president can call these people to his private study and tell them that I want you to resign. And then, of course, they'll take a walk. So for me, my feeling is we should not be loyal to persons. Now, Kenya as a democracy, we need to be loyal to the state, not to personalities. All right, point made. The straw that broke the camel's back, some analysis has pointed to the ICC question and the kind of information that came out from the NIS. Then there's another line of thinking that following Peketoni attacks, all the chiefs were put together and told that if you're found to have been the one who dropped the ball, then you must resign. And when it was found that the intelligence could not be acted on, then he had to take the fall. Then there's a school of thought that there were poor relations with the KDF boss and others. What do you think was it?
Yeah, when I was reading, you know, last week we had an impeachment, so
we'll get to that.
I sought to differ on one or two issues. So I read a lot of case law and references about impeachment processes. And a governor once was impeached for general incompetence. So I think for me, Gishangi is just general incompetence. There's everywhere that went wrong. Yeah, but you know, you tell me after the fact that you warned about Westgate. You tell me after the fact that you warned about every little thing. And to just tell you how that was a propaganda avenue is NSIS doesn't give a formal statement somewhere. But somebody engineers it to be planted across the media, and what NIS tries to do then is to cleanse itself of responsibility. And I think this must have incensed his co-partners in terms of other agencies of national security.
Then the blame falls
because
on them,
then you always are pointing it out to Kimayo, you're always pointing it out to the Karangi, you're always pointing it out to everybody else apart from yourself. And as you say, you put this brief, part of which is a collection or collation of rumors that oftentimes does not get to the point. I can tell you for a fact, personally, I totally believe that the narrative that Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, read after Mpeketoni, that it's ethnically engineered, I am partly convinced that that narrative must have come from the NIS itself. So you've put the president in a box on things almost 2 or 3 months down the line. You're unable to substantiate anything. You're just chasing a mirage. You've humiliated the whole president, not only within the spheres of the nation, but internationally. So I think, so I can say for me, it's a question of general incompetence. General incompetence.
Weda, on Mutua Ringo being moved from Interior Ministry as the PS, he's now moved to Defense, and then there were some other appointments, ambassadors.
I think you are aware, and we are all aware, that the biggest issue of our times is security.
True.
and it has been so hot that at one time we would have squeezed life out of Lelenko. I was here in this program saying the problem is not Lelenko. It's not him. It's only that he's in charge, and then when he's given information to say, sometimes he's given the wrong information. So he says it, and people are like, kill this election.
That's not to give wrong information.
Yes.
Kill this one. You understand? But if you look at government, Lelenko is a minister, you come, you are told, you know, this thing has been done by Raila. Then he announces. Then they're like, what? We are here, it is not Raila. So, and the president doesn't operate that way. The president wants to deal with the issue.
Yes.
Deal with the problem. And dealing with the problem really involves looking at where the problem emanates.
So he was a problem?
I'm not saying it was a problem. So when, let's take for instance, when NSIS was called special branch.
Yes.
And their major assignment was to ensure there was no political dissent. Okay? Even if you spoke under your bed with your wife or girlfriend, anti-government issues, they will get it. And after 1 or 2 days they come for you. They were that efficient. Now after political space,
efficiency to the president.
After political space was open, and anybody is allowed to say, Omar, Senator Omar is allowed to say anything, anytime, and smile all the way to the bank. Then they were supposed to turn that efficiency to security. Now that's where they got it wrong. So as you clean the system, okay, you can see NSIS boss is gone. That NSIS boss, the civil servant in charge was actually the PS. That's the civil servant, the one with the firing authority. Get off, get off. That one. And there will be a few others as we go along. So that you try a new team. If again it doesn't work, you find where the problem is. Because Kenyans want to see action.
So you're saying he was not a problem, but at the same time saying this was solving a problem?
I think he is part of the old narrative on the management of security. If you look at his background, I personally believe, I've spoken to him several times, there is hardly any concurrence between me and him. Not that I know any more security than he does, but I know that what I'm presenting are cutting edge, research and accepted norms of security management globally. And I spent a lot of time with practical actors when I was at the KNCHR to understand how modern security institutions are managed. So he was part of the old narrative. He's this guy who's obsessed about county commissioners, because he comes from that arena of provincial administration proper. He's this guy obsessed by a little MRC and compounds the fear factor. I know. I mean, the handlers. Therefore, I think Uhuru needs to look for people who are a little more sophisticated and learn. President Uhuru, and a bit more schooled in that arena. So I think for me, it was a big relief that you have lifted a lead on a port that is almost at the highest levels of pressure. So I want to believe the new PS so appointed is up to the task. He needs to be more inclusive in his.
It's a she actually.
Yeah, she needs to be more inclusive in terms of her management. Monica. So that kind of a situation. So I hope she can be able to face up with that new challenge. And I think also now to respect the Constitution. I keep saying this and again, the county commissioner is a busybody in the arrangement of national security. He, the management of national security in Mombasa is largely in the hands of County Commander Kitur, Ondieki, and a few others who are charged with that direct responsibility. Here we have, and every other time, sadly, you will see the county policing of the services almost contradicting what the county commissioner does say. Because you see, we have a sense of neutrality when it comes to the management of National Police Service, whereas we do not have that neutrality when you come to the National Police, the county commander, the county commissioner.
Yes, I want us to move on from the security question, but first your contribution. And also there's been talk of perhaps more reshuffle, more appointments. For the cabinet, do you see that happening? For the cabinet secretaries, do you see any of them being moved around or out?
Well, going back to the principal secretaries, and if the suggestion is that Mutua Iringo did not do a good job,
yeah,
then that probably will make everybody in Kenya nervous, because it's still in the security sector, it's gone to defense.
yeah.
And if maybe the president is of the view that Mutua Iringo didn't do a good job, maybe just like he did to Gishangi, you should have also requested him to resign and spend more time with his family. Because again, you don't want to give him the opportunity to go to defense. In case there was some elements of mediocrity in internal security, you don't want him to transfer the same to defense.
Okay.
And for me, I would imagine, obviously, I don't have access to a lot of information like Weda does about President Kenyatta's operations, but maybe he would have sent a new set of names to the National Assembly for approval. If Omar is of the view that, in fact, Mutua Iringo is analog in his thinking, then maybe there's so many Kenyans who've gone through the public service, maybe even in the private sector, who would be given this opportunity, a fresh opportunity, so that then the president has got an entirely new team. Because Mutua Iringo and company have been in the system for a long while, and one would even suspect they're over the retirement age. So they should pave way and allow people, a new team to come, so that we also, as a strategy of creating jobs, Mr. Weda, so that we get new people to come on board. But when you look at the new appointments, especially within the diplomatic community,
yes,
that's when the president deserves a pat on the back. Because some of the people who've been appointed, and if their names go through parliament, and the ones who've been transferred, are really bright chaps, and they'll be able to take our economic diplomacy to the next level. So for that one, I think the president got it right, about 90% right. Outside a few politicians, for instance, one fails to understand why Professor Sam Ongeri, who is double his age, would get appointed as an ambassador to Habitat.
They're looking for the face of the country.
No. I mean, what the president ought, maybe President Kenyatta ought to do again from Weda, is these people, he needs to retain them in informal positions as advisors. Expecting Professor Sam Ongeri to wake up at 5 in the morning to go to Gigiri and sit for hours on end discussing global warming is really touching that patriotic man. And also Chirao Makwere going to Mombasa.
But one thing, I also want to give that rare praise, but also I also qualify it with one thing.
You want to give praise?
Yeah.
Rare praise, as you say.
Yes.
I want to say one thing.
Like that.
It has been my position and still is my position.
Yes.
The ambassadorial staff, even at the highest, the ambassadorial services, must be retained for career diplomats. These people, like us, aspire for these things. You see, it's Weda knows he came into law. He wants to go to the very highest level a lawyer can get. So you cannot constantly, fail to reward. But I can tell you for a fact, most of his appointments are career diplomats. In fact, some of our best career diplomats. So, because I've traveled quite widely, and I've met some of these diplomats across the world when I travel, and they know how it is to be a diplomat. Whether you come from Code, whether you come from Jubilee, it matters little. If he treats a Code senator in a particular, Jubilee senator in a particular way, he will treat or she will treat the Code senator in a very similar fashion. They are career diplomats, but the Jean Kamau's, people who think that when a former prime minister is in a country, you need to avoid a forum. Those are the types of people we should not polarize our whole entire arrangement. So career diplomats, Ambassador Jello, Ambassador, and many others who I saw on that list are people who are have distinction in diplomacy.
Let me just clarify something on Professor Sam Ongeri and Ali Chirao Makwere. Two things. Where has Professor Sam Ongeri is taken? He has been there before.
Where UNEP?
UNEP. It's not his first time. And Professor Sam Ongeri is not only competent. Remember, they are the people who delivered the Jubilee victory. Remember that. So if he was strong enough with Makwere, they were able to wake up early in the morning to look for votes all over the country. Why not wake up to go and do a diplomatic job? So he's capable. Chirao Ali Makwere is also a career diplomat. You know that. Secondly, if you go to battle with your colleagues the way President Uhuru went, and politics is a game. You don't reach there and then people come with thick CVs, thick huge CVs, and forget about the people who baked the cake. So other than being able, Chirao Ali Makwere, Professor Sam Ongeri, this is their cake. They have to get a portion.
Last week, the senator was one of the speakers who gave very passionate submissions on why the Deputy Governor Machakos County should not be impeached. Did you follow the proceedings? At least I caught some of them. What did you think of Mokua? I'll start with you before we hear what Senator has to say.
Well, for me, I found the debate really to be largely a waste of resources and a waste of time. Right. Simply because, I mean, on the face of it, what the senators were talking about, and it's very clear that the provisions, and when during the deliberations, when they were doing the actual interviews, it seemed to me that there was nothing that the deputy governor had done. It's simply a misunderstanding between a husband and wife, as Senator Wetangula put it, and you must be prepared to walk the entire mile together. Yeah. And maybe I think in future what we may need to do is really, again, this is the ball to Omar, amend that particular provision so that the governor has got powers to appoint a deputy that he can work with, that he can fire at will. Because now the deputy governor for Machakos is going to waste taxpayers' resources for the next 3.5 years. He'll go to the office in the morning, drink a lot of tea, fill the crossword puzzles, and go home. I mean, there's no way Dr. Mutua will give him any responsibilities. I don't know whether they'll be able to sit in the same cabinet meeting. And I suspect now what the deputy governor will do is going to use state resources, those vehicles that Dr. Mutua is said to have acquired in breach of procurement procedures, to go through the entire county campaigning and undermining his boss. And it's only going to serve nuisance value to Dr. Mutua. It's going to make Mutua lose weight, maybe have ulcers, and, you know, run him through the mud. So it's important maybe to review that particular section of the Constitution and allow the governor to appoint a deputy that he can work with, so that if there is trouble, he fires him and gets another person.
Yeah. So, Senator, we had your submissions. You were very passionate about somebody. Even one of the members said perhaps you should have been part of his defense team. But that said, on a lighter note, of course,
all of them are from court.
You were convinced that should not even have been in the Senate.
You know, I think Dismas was listening into our discussions, because some of the things he highlighted were what we discussed about, structural. I think we need to do away with this running mate business for governor and leave, like what we see in many municipal authorities across the world, where the governor or the mayor, once elected, appoints a deputy who becomes an employee, you know, and therefore, because I think the units are quite basic, so therefore we do not, the gubernatorial units, 47, and therefore you do not want that type of, you know, misnomer. So I think what we need to do is to allow the latitude, because after all, almost all the deputy governors are idle wherever they are. In fact, people are reading newspapers already. That's why we are trying to see what functions, as per law, with the guidance of what the former members of the committee of experts said, that they hoped that the parliament will legislate part of the functions of a deputy governor. So we want to at least give them teeth, if not even teeth, but something to do, or get away totally with this idea of a deputy governor by taking up an advantage of the opportunity of the referendum that is coming. But I can tell you, I got those files when I got appointed to that committee. So I started reading the first page. I saw sleaze, drama. I went to the second page, the third page, the fourth page. I mean, I took literally the whole evening through to the night reading it because of the intrigues. And immediately I formulated an opinion. You're seeing affidavits all signed on the sworn on the same day, all similar, all are employees of Dr. Mutua. You see a letter from a doctor saying that they are anxious with a sworn affidavit to support the claim of hate speech, and so it was totally dirty. And
had you invited this governor to come?
No, the governor wasn't invited, but and that's why I said Dismas was eavesdropping. We said that process was a total waste of time for the Senate, a total waste of energy, a political witch hunt of that. And I think we need to remedy the defect even by law, by first and foremost setting certain thresholds for impeachment even at the county assembly levels, and on that basis, what are the areas that needs to now come back to the Senate? I think there are certain things we might just want to leave at the county assembly level, and even to tell the governors that you cannot use these procedural issues to victimize or witch hunt. And I think that idea sold across the board. If you might have not, they might, yes, at some point some of our friends from the Jubilee side of the coalition moved out to hope that maybe the vote will not take place. But there's a sizable number that left because they said This is hogwash. I cannot be called in as a member of the coalition to come and, validate such kind of, trivialities. And that's why we had senators who voted with our side of the coalition. Senator Mokua, Senator Keter, Senator Mositet, Senator Bule, and a couple of other senators. Others moved away out of their own volition, saying, as they walked away, as the debate progressed, they said, what kind of, trivialities have been brought to the floor of the Senate?
Weda.
You saw Kajwang on TV speaking very angry. Then the onslaught was led by Senator Omar. Behind the scenes was Senator Mudama. The man to deal with is Governor Mutua. He's growing too big, threatening Kalonzo Musyoka's base. He's growing to be a presidential material, and then he has done what they call the worst mistake, dancing with Jubilee. So that is, the deputy governor is their sidekick to check as Governor Mutua grows. So chances of him having been impeached was not there. He was sent home to be sanitized. Now that is why you can see so-and-so is coming with sleeves and all these stories. That man has caused more trouble to a governor who is actually performing. The rest are just even unable to pay the doctors. You saw the doctor here. The governor is just posturing and stealing and doing court things. They have seen one governor, and the trick is cut him to size.
But he started it. If that is the argument,
because this man is been pushed inside. You know, like somebody coming to a house and then he has taken hostage your deputy, so you can't move, and you can't move. That is where the problem is. It's not that easy.
One of the things I keep telling Mr. Weda is to acquaint himself with facts. There were 24 charges brought before Governor Mutua against Deputy Governor Kiala.
Yes.
Of the 24, we had a committee of 11 comprising 6 Jubilee and 5 Code. Of these 24, by consensus, 21 charges were found to be defective. In other words, the 6 Jubilee and the 5 Code senators in the committee, special committee, found these charges unsubstantiated. Then we had the 3 charges which we could not agree upon. The charges of hate speech. And our issue is, what constitutes hate speech? That was the debate in the Senate. Yeah, are we the authority, or are we the institution to try hate speech? Yeah, are these, those type of arguments jurisprudentially in terms of procedural fairness?
It wasn't bipartisan. You insisted still some politics. Yes.
The Senate itself found themselves in a hole after taking unfortunate considerations and impeaching governors here and there, and then weakening devolution. Then they have to beat a hasty retreat. Now they have retreated so far that now they see no wrong, they hear no wrong, just because they are still targeting the governors. That's why they are passing a bill where they want to be in charge. And leading the pack is the governor of Machakos, because he's doing well. That is why the senators, all of them, including the young ones who hope to be president, young ones like Kindiki, the other, they look and say, the man who may challenge us in the president, this one. So let's deal with him now. That's why they allow
again, before he comes in, Kindiki actually was pushing for that.
I didn't say
no, see, what happens, but you're creating an impression out there that Mutua is being targeted from a political point of view. Mutua also needs to know that governance is not just about, enthusing the weather types with pictures, the photographs of parks and roads that are wearing off after some time. Governance is a whole package. Governance is a whole package. You have to learn how to keep the team in place.
I need Mokua to contribute before we move on.
Well, for me, when you look at the issue of Dr. Mutua and his deputy, it seems to me to be all sizzle and no steak. As Hassan Omar has indicated, there are really no solid performance indicators that one would look at and then you say Dr. Mutua is actually above the pack, that is done so well. If anything, all the all the indications point in the wrong direction. Like, for instance, there's no way in the world you can do a road within 3 weeks
The
or
road is
3
there,
months.
you see.
I mean, it's already wearing off. And basic standard of engineering says when you're putting up a road, you have to excavate, arrange the bricks, arrange the rocks, and do a nice thing. Instead of focusing on issues that affect food security, and that's the biggest challenge in Machakos, you just, paid staff. And I'm a student of communications, so it's easy to manipulate the media, social media, KTN, and every other person. I mean, KTN here representing the entire media and come up with a thing. But for instance, if you are, say, buying an ambulance, are you supposed to buy a vehicle that will transport a patient from point A to B, or you buy an hospital inside a vehicle so that if the patient is about to die, he'll be resuscitated and not pronounced dead on arrival? When you look at those, some of those ambulances, they're very interesting vehicles that really would not save a life. And for me, I think really what maybe we need to do, and maybe this is back to Senator Omar, because I think the Senate has done it's not done a very good job in their work. It's for us to see the tangibles that all the governors have done. We should not wait for the train to leave the station and start doing financial accounting. We should be looking at the future management accounting to establish what they've done. Because you wake up early in the morning and for 12 months, the income you earn for 4 months goes to pay Hassan, Omar, and Dr. Mutua. So you expect a good return on your sweat. So for me, I think really the governors should really focus on the core business of serving Wanjiku, instead of spending all the time in the media and starting looking at potential positions. If you do well today, you come up with a nice road. When you're ready to run for president in 3.5 years or 7 years, 10 years, then we need to look at your track record. And the idea that the senators are really breaking into dance and song simply because of Mutua, I think really that's part of propaganda. For instance, if you saw the way TNA reacted to the issue in Mathare, instead of accepting that they've lost, they say it's a rather thin loss. That, we lost by 1 vote. Well, we know that in politics, all that matters is 50+1. No, but still they lost. They're not in parliament.
Let's finally
let me tell you, on that losing election, Honorable Major Sugo beat Barishil by 2 votes. And I remember in 2007, and I remember Barishil asked for a recount, and a recount. Finally, Dr. Major Sugo got a little upset. I said, "Chukua yote, bakisha moja." That's victory, by the way. You stay out of parliament, he stays in. But to just to conclude that point on the impeachment, you have to realize this. You see, when Dr. Mutua is a person under investigations by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Auditor General's reports that have castigated him about financial impropriety, and I think these are matters still before the various forums. So, when I remember he came to Mombasa when the senators were meeting, and people told him, why would you procure police cars? Why would you procure things that are not within your mandate? And he gave.
Haven't you done that in Mombasa as well? Police cars?
No. The police cars in Mombasa have been donated by private citizens. Okay. They have not been bought by county resources. That is where the difference is. We started it. I think he wanted to eclipse the county governor of Mombasa. So he went overboard. And let me tell you what his response was. It was very shocking. He says, "Oh, if you go to a swimming pool, YMCA, whatever, and you see that it is said there, you have to, before you enter the pool, shower and be in your swimming costume, and you see somebody drowning, you see someone drowning, would you first wait to go and shower and be in your swimming costume?" And I think that very lame, you have to realize who you're speaking to. You can be speaking in a certain audience in Machakos or somewhere else, and that will fly. Then you're speaking to the Amos Wakos of this world who know every little trick in the law and every little rule in the book, and the Orengos, and you tell them that kind of myopic argument, you've lost it. And they were like, okay, so this guy did not shower and put on a swimming costume. So that kind of a situation, so it can be turned against you.
You can see they already say, it is sad that somebody will suffer for performance. I live in Machakos County. Not far from where I live, there's an emergency vehicle and an ambulance. The road they're talking about, I have gone to see it, driven on it. Now, you are made to suffer because you are doing well. Other governors have eaten everything. Akuna. How? We should be saying it's composing a song. The Senate should be composing a song.
Governors are it's used to a banana republic. If governors had eaten, institutions would have been on them.
Last week, we saw court with their launch, and the presence of Martha Karua was a surprise for some.
Wasn't a surprise at all.
For some.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe not for you. You knew she was coming. And
you saw the guest list
as well. You know, coming and being part of that, although Peter Kenneth was not there, but his deputy was to represent the party. And then now, in one of its strategies to counter this whole referendum talk, Jubilee is talking about coming up with that limit in age for the presidency, 65 years. We'll start with you, Mokua.
Well, for me, I think really...
Were you shocked first by Martha showing up?
Well, I was not shocked by Martha or Peter Kenneth, these people attending these rallies, because we've actually seen them for the longest time possible. And part of the reason as why we're in trouble today is because of this kind of people. They're the ones who've been in leadership position, and they've not offered the country any vision. But when a political party decides that instead of focusing on an issue, say insecurity, the cost of living, how to address the high cost of power, that they're focusing on a personality, that you don't want her to become president, and you're coming up with a piece of legislation so that if during the election is going to be over 65, then he doesn't run. In my view, that's really pursuing selfish interest at the expense of the national goal. Because at some stage, you will have a very bright chap who is 65 years and he qualifies to be a president, maybe in 10 or 20 years' time, and you pass a legislation today. So I think the kind of legislation you're supposed to pass today is for posterity, not to serve our immediate interest today. And for me, I think people like Moses Kuria...
But they're playing back with politics because they feel all they're getting is politics.
Well, but you know, one would have expected that the Jubilee team, composed of Weda and company, would really engage in that political strategy they call triangulation. Look at what CORD wants to bring to the table and hijack the entire process and run with it, take advantage of the state machinery and everything. Bill Clinton used it to become president and Obama used it to become president. You just run with the ideas of what your neighbor wants to do and you run with it.
They're running with them and
they can easily do it.
More ideas.
But what they must do, what they must not do, number one is to say that we are going to come up with a piece of legislation so that if you're over the age of 65, you don't run. I mean, presidents like Ronald Reagan became presidents much after 65. Okay. And then the funny fellas going around that the referendum is expensive. I also think that's serious propaganda that Murkomen and company must run away from. Because, you know, it's part of our constitution and that this is a democratic country. And you cannot put a value. You know, democracy is not as if you're coming up with preparing a cup of tea. So you put costing sugar, water, milk, energy, and then you say it's going to be 20 bob.
So what you're saying, it's going to be expensive, but what you're saying is that it's a right for the people to do it when...
I mean, even if it's going to make the country inflation go to a certain level, interest rates go to a certain level, Wanjiku includes even Mura or Anyango, must be given the opportunity to participate in this. Because sometimes we assume that our elected members of Parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate, they are authorities, that they understand our views. But majority of them, as soon as they go to the National Assembly or the Senate, they become hostages of special interest groups. Okay. So they stop representing Wanjiku.
Finally,
you know, your choice of words, Sophia, is very important. You said counter, and you make counter court strategy of a referendum. And then you throw in a name like Moses Kuria. I mean, for heaven's sake, that's a village hero. I mean, that's you know, that he has no capacity to even counter a regular MCA.
No, that has also been said by the TN Secretary General.
I mean, you know, that you cannot mention those two in the same sentence.
Other than Moses Kuria, Senator, talking about it, the TNA Sec Gen also brought up the question of bringing up that 65 as an age limit. So it's been there. It's not the first time we're hearing it.
I can tell you for a fact, outside Getundu, that's it. That's where, and I think what you have to realize. What you have to realize, everybody just resonates within their little village, and unfortunately, that is personified by Moses Kuria. And I agree with Dismas. I mean, putting a cap on presidential on presidential age will be discriminatory even in terms of the Constitution, that the constitutional issues, that nobody shall be discriminated on the basis of age. So the same way we've talked about the non-discrimination of young people, non-discrimination of women, non-discrimination of certain minority groups, I think the elderly are also protected in the Constitution, and I'm not the person who favors. Personally, you come to us to see us in Mombasa. We take a little of those brilliance. That brilliance which might be not within our age bracket, and mix it with the vibrancy and the intellect of the young. So I think what happens that's a very myopic focus. I think we are on the broader issues, and I can tell you, Sophia, I will hope to be here during the referendum day, and I hope to analyze that referendum day with you.
Having voted.
And through to the next day, I bring him. I can tell you, bring Ambrose. He might not. I know he will vote a no. Even when we talking about more resources to the Kisumu County, where he wants to be governor eventually, and therefore we're going to have core issues that I think will rally this country. I can tell you for a fact, this referendum will succeed.
Okay, it will succeed. Did you hear that?
Let me start by Martha Karua.
Yes.
Definitely, you know the blood between Martha Karua and Honorable Uhuru is such that if Martha Karua is seated there, if Uhuru is seated there, automatically Martha Karua will sit there. Okay. So if President Uhuru is saying no referendum, you expect Martha Karua to be on the other side. That's no. So we understand it. What we don't understand is Peter Kenneth, but you can see is 50-50. With regard to the age limit, let me call it a counter-insurgency because of the propaganda and the gerrymandering by CORD. You also look at the very touchy issues, the very hot issues, so that you counter. But my honest view is that we cannot amend a constitution in such a way that sanitizes Honorable Raila. Today, if you put a cap at 65, everybody will run away with it that you are targeting Raila. And that may work for him. Okay? Secondly, our constitution, this one is supposed to last for another 100 years. So we cannot therefore put those things. Thirdly, we had Honorable Muchuki here. Sometimes when there's Mpeketoni and there's everybody, we wish like going to pray at his grave to say, can God release him kidogo to come and do our security? And then go back. He did security, we thought it was security alone, then he did the environment. Honorable Kalonzo was put in the same environment, he could do nothing. He was 70-something when he was doing all this. And that time, Kenyans were saying, Muchuki for president. Nelson Mandela brought up the country, the Rainbow Nation, and became a hero. He was over 65. So age is a number. Some of us are 20 years old, but our mindsets, we are 100. So we cannot rotate our constitution in a way that will sanitize Raila. Everyone will believe we are targeting Raila. I believe Honorable Raila should come on the ballot on the second Tuesday of August, and then round 1. Pap.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We wrap it up there. I think you're very happy with those. You must be agreeing very much with the.
Because he actually said nothing. So
I don't know what to agree with.
And Ambrose Weda with us for the waiters. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great week. What did he say? Of course he said so. And we'll see you shortly after this break.